This guy's asking, was it a fitness test? Was it a comfort test? Or is his wife just a... Welcome, guys. Mids Watch. If you're catching this one live, it's probably Thursday at midnight. Probably around there. Or 9 o'clock if you're on the West Coast. This is going to be a fairly basic and simple field report. Is this guy can't tell the difference between three red pilled concepts: a shit test, a comfort test, and a crazy bitch. So it's a nice opportunity. I know there's an episode, a couple episodes back from this one, that was me talking about different kinds of tests that you're going to get while you're in a marriage and what the purpose is and how to handle them. If you haven't seen it, go back on them. Anyway, yeah. I won't belabor you with the details. If you guys don't know what those concepts are, that's fine. Just simply put, a shit test is a girl who's like attracted to you but kind of gets bratty in order to check if it's a real signal or if you're faking it. Comfort test is when a girl feels insecure about her place in your relationship, and so she seeks comfort to stave off anxiety. And crazy is just crazy. So the guy starts off, and this is the classic post. It turns out that deleted is the most common guy in a struggling marriage. They mostly do this. They'll come in, they'll have one or two kind of obvious questions a couple months in, then delete their stuff and run off. Turns out most guys don't like putting in the work, and they're kind of embarrassed about this stuff. So that's why a majority of guys just aren't going to make it. He goes, whatever the hell this was, I failed it. He's doing his usual nighttime routines with the wife, trying to play a game. And she's like, oh, I really like this, looking at his body, but I'm not attracted to you. And then he starts thinking about it. He shuts up, which is smart. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything. So he's interpreting it as, I think you're hot, but just too beta for me. And he's still thinking. And then the wife chimes in again. It's like, yeah, I don't think I've ever been attracted to anyone. And to him, he's like, okay. Probably the best answer he can give. He is truly clueless in this one. He goes, but anyway, I'm in the sex desert, so that's still a constant. But what the hell was that? When he's talking about the sex desert, he just means a dead bedroom. His wife is not attracted to him, so they don't have sex. And because they don't have sex, most guys start to try seeking validation from their wives. Most of the wives get less attracted, and that's how most marriages break up. Who'da thunk? Turns out all that stuff about Jesus and the Bible doesn't matter. Without attraction, you don't have anything else. And a couple points on this one from my thoughts before I get into Jack's thing. Women think by communication. So when she's saying that stuff, she doesn't know what she believes yet. She has a feeling of a lack of attraction. At the same time, the op's been working out. He's starting to look better. So there's kind of like a disconnect there. She's trying to understand, like, I don't get it. Am I attracted to this guy or am I not attracted to this guy? My take on it is a shit test because she sees the hot body. She's becoming attracted to it. But she's like, oh, I'm not really attracted to my husband for whatever reason. And so they have to start talking to kind of figure out what's going on. That's why this is a shit test. So if he responds with something cocky and funny and confident and aloof, healthy narcissism, all that stuff, she's like, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm attracted to him. It's a subliminal process, but it happens. In this case, he just stands there like a dope and stares. And she's like, oh, okay, never mind. I was wrong. And so that's where he screwed it up. So about 70 years ago, Jack comes in and starts talking to him. He's like, all right, whatever this test was, yeah, you failed it. And you're going to continue to feel this way as long as you're a thirsty motherfucker who can only evaluate any progress in the context of his wife's attraction to him. Like, look. This is going to be the last time I comment on one of your threads. This guy, it turns out, had a history of these, does she like me threads? You need to develop and follow a male action plan and be able to intrinsically evaluate how well you're measuring up in it. The fact that you're unable to do this is a huge barrier to anything you want to accomplish. I mean, you seem insistent to only evaluate how well you're measuring up in the context of your wife's reactions to you, which we've readily established is likely a girl with full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. You are literally asking her to gaslight you, which she's more than willing to do because NPDs are pretty much all about gaslighting. That's why this is so fucking frustrating to me. You can't keep coming here once a week saying, okay guys, I did some red pill stuff like you guys said, but my wife still won't sleep with me, and then she makes mean comments about me and my appearance, so I don't think I'm doing it right. What should I do instead? Look, to hell with that, man. Like, I'm going to give you the closest thing to a step-by-step plan to getting your shit together. Everyone else is free to critique it, and I would welcome those critiques, as I don't claim to be the final authority on any of this. But out of principle, it's pretty much driving me crazy on how close you are to almost getting it, and then falling for the same emotional bullshit from your wife over and over and over again. Develop and follow your map. For fuck's sakes. It's almost July. Make a list of goals you want to accomplish for the next 6 months. The goal should have a wide breadth across your life, professional, fitness, social, etc. Side note from me here, it's funny, my second book, it's actually in the 7 years since this came out, this is what frame was. He's basically describing frame before we knew what frame was and how to describe it at frame. And what he's referring to here is something we came to call the tetrahedron of frame. The idea that your physical self, your emotional self, and your intellectual self form a pillar, like a triangular base, and then on top of that is vision. And then the idea of that is how you build your own mental point of origin, aka frame. But it was cute, because back then, you can see where he's going with this, but like, oh man, if only he knew how much more we're going to add in the next decade. It's going to be great. The goals must be objectively concrete. Lift more is not a goal. A 170-pound person with 12% body fat is a goal. If you have 10% fat, your wife's attraction is irrelevant. It means you're ripped as hell, and by any objective standard, you're fuckable. And if your wife isn't fucking you, that's her problem. The rationale for the above is to start with this. Someone who can do X is an impressive person. Then go become someone who can do X. It's that simple. You keep reducing yourself to, my wife's not sleeping with me, all these things can't be that impressive, and it's again, to hell with that. The goal here is to make your own frame and evaluate that within this context. So she's probably going to resist it. She's going to belittle you, put you down, call you a wanker, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Why? Because I'm instructing you to go on a sexual hiatus. Until you accomplish everything in your map, you're done attempting to have sex with her. Just don't. I'm not saying shut down and be icy, be cold. I'm saying be pleasant. Be a good father. Your map should have things like household goals, remodeling, or whatever you want to get done in your house, but you're taking sex out of the equation. It seems like a drastic step, and I'm sure this will be controversial amongst the red pill, but I'm instructing you to do so you can stop using your wife's willingness to fuck you as a barometer. I've transformed. I'm charming. I'm good looking and in shape, but bored. I need something to do next. Another challenge to conquer. Please give it to me. So no sex, 6 months or sooner if you accomplish your goals. If she offers it, turn her down, because it'll probably be starfish and bad, and you wonder if you're really making progress and why she's still so sexually closed off in the event of said progress. And I think that's why this is important. I'm suggesting this because it will force you to care about and notice other manifestations of your progress. You're going to get a raise at work, feel good about yourself, come home feeling like $1 million, only for your wife to say some shit like, nice job, wanker, took you long enough. And you will be sad because that means she still won't sleep with you, which will demotivate you from continuing to kick ass professionally. So once again, hell with that. Your accomplishments are their own reward, whether they lead to her wanting to screw with you or to screw you. And it doesn't really matter anymore because you can't screw her anyway. So that's my advice. And I understand, don't sleep with your wife if she's down is generally against the conventional wisdom of the married red pill. But in your case, you're so short-sighted about drawing correlations between progress and sex that I'm suggesting you rip off the Band-Aid and essentially go into a short-term monk mode. My primary hope is that you develop some intrinsic appreciation for your own progress. My secondary hope is you develop some awareness for the secondary appreciation from other people that aren't your wife. You can look into that however you want. When a friend says you're a fitness freak because you're committed to the gym, you should not think, well, for all the good that does me, my wife won't sleep with me. You should be thinking, damn straight. I like this one. I like this one because it shows that, like, everybody loves to talk about red pill's a philosophy, red pill's a dogma, it's an ideology, it's a cult or whatever. And I was like, no, it's not. Everything is hypothetical. There's two types of imperatives. An imperative is, think of it like an order. There's hypothetical imperatives and there's categorical imperatives. Categorical ones are things are good because they're good. Like ideology has categorical imperatives. Good Christian men do this. Good feminists do that. Good liberals and conservatives do this and that and the other thing. And there's none of that in the red pill. It's all hypothetical, which means, like, if you want something, do this. If you don't want it, then don't. In this case, this guy's problem here is that he bases his self-worth completely on the amount of sex his wife gives him. He's given her the entire keys to the kingdom. He's given her the ability to be judge, jury, and executioner. And the problem is she's most likely psychologically unhinged. And so she knows she has that power and she wields it like a weapon. Now, when he's talking specifically there, it's actually from, was it from No More Mr. Nice Guy? I think it's from the end of No More Mr. Nice Guy where he talks about a sexual hiatus. To date, I've actually talked with Glover about this. Rolo's talked with Glover about this, and we kind of worked it amongst ourselves in the various red-pilled spaces we're in. And we see that necessarily as a bad idea. The idea as a man, you're horny, you're sexual, never turn down sex, you should be trying to sleep all the time, like who cares? Absolutely true, 99% of scenarios. In that case, this guy's problem isn't, like, he thinks it's his problem is not getting laid. But his problem isn't that. His problem is he's using getting laid as his measure of judgment. And so he has to disconnect the idea of sex and his value as a man in order to become valuable as a man to get more sex from wives or whoever. So yeah, this is one of those times where, like, the if really matters. And that's why it's not really anti-red pill. It's red pill because it's going to work. And he kind of chimes in later on. It's like, all right, fair enough. I get where you're coming from. I'm going to stop posting, just read, just lurk. It's not that I'm butthurt about this stuff. I'm just confused. And so if I can grok what you're saying, then your summary is your wife is really crazy. Get yourself sorted out over everything else, including sex. Reevaluate, check progress against your plan by the end of the year. Is that fair? Jack's like, confused. Yeah, no shit. Of course you're confused. You've been gaslit by your narcissistic wife for this whole relationship. It occurred to me, you may not even know what gaslighting means. So he gives him a definition of gaslighting. He's like, yeah, the last thing you should be doing is trying to evaluate your progress relative to this person. None of us should be doing that anyway. But do you see why, in the case of your particular case with your wife, with a fucked up mental model, is an absolutely horrible idea? You're like an abused girl trying to measure her progress by how often her abusive boyfriend beats the shit out of her. Like, I did this and he still beat me. Why did he act that way? What am I doing wrong? What advice would you give that girl? Would you feel it was a worthwhile exercise to deconstruct her boyfriend's reactions? Or would you just attribute it to his reactions being a mentally unbalanced person, and maybe she should stop giving a shit about how he reacts and get the fuck out of there? And yet, like the abused girl, you seem so completely insistent on doing the former, and I can't figure out why. Like, who cares what kind of reactions your wife gives you? The definition of a narcissist is somebody who invents their own reality that revolves around them because they're too insecure to deal with actual reality. There's not going to be a strong correlation between your improvement and any differences in her actions. I was like, let me be clear. The plan is necessary because you need an objective standard to measure your progress. Some of us have the luxury of a well-adjusted wife who, outside of some shit testing, respond fairly well to a red pill-inspired change. While we would make these changes for their sake, something like, I used to have sex once a month, and now it's twice a week. Clearly I'm doing something right and should keep doing it, is useful as a barometer. You don't get that luxury. It's going to take a long time before your wife responds with anything close to what you would consider positive change. In fact, she will respond even more negatively at first, because, in her mind, she's married to the supplicating beta bitch who waits on her husband, or whose husband waits on her, hand and foot, gladly accepts any torrent of abuse that she deems worthy of giving him. The second you begin to act remotely like you're no longer buying what she's selling, her deep-seated insecurity will cause her to freak the fuck out. What he is talking about here, what Jack is bringing up, is a concept I've told you guys about for years now. It's unhealthy narcissism, or NPD. The idea is you're inventing a reality and then you require everybody else to supplant it. That's narcissistic fuel and a narcissistic fantasy. In the case of his improvement, it actually goes against that fantasy that she has of her supplicative punching bag husband. And so when he rejects that narrative, it actually doesn't cause her to change the narrative. It causes her to lash out on a condition called narcissistic rage. That's why narcissists flip the fuck out when you don't acknowledge their script. And in this case, it sucks because, I mean, this would almost be better placed in like a female dealing with your shitty husband help forum. Because this is really and truly a case of men who have been raised to act like defective women. Like an NPD wife, there shouldn't be NPD wives. The husbands should have the NPD. The husbands should be the one who like constantly berate their wives and shit like this. The wives are supposed to be borderline. The wives are supposed to build their identity off the strongest personality in the room. If you've ever dated a borderline person, they're the ones that like love bomb you and fall in love with you, and then next week they hate you and they can't stand you. This is a total role reversal, and it really makes me wonder, like maybe my place in the universe is like a female dating coach. I just take like beta husbands and their wives and just like retool that advice and switch the genders out. It probably works like a charm. Anyways, most of the rest of this is just asking this guy to have some self-reflection. Again, he deleted his account. He moved on. No idea how he ended up. The roadmap was sound. I like to think that he took that advice to heart. He stopped posting all the time. He made the effort, realized the wife's probably not worth it, or maybe she got her shit together, said she needed help. Chances are, though, about 80% of the guys, and these are like the very few guys that even come here that want to learn, about 80% of them end up just finding some way to cope with their lives of quiet misery because the work was too hard, or they didn't want to have to make difficult decisions, or it's just they'd rather not take responsibility for their own happiness, and they'd rather just find a way to be happy with what they got. So I don't know, maybe I'm cynical, but from your perspective, there's an easy lesson here that you can take. It's like, don't use other people for your validation. And when people say you got to do things for yourself, and it's like it's a thought terminating cliche, which is true, but it's also not helpful the way it's worded there. You got to think of it this way. If somebody realizes that they are the reason you're getting validation and they have any problems with you or problems with themselves, chances are they're going to weaponize that thing. So you need to have objective metrics of success. Now, I know it's not always going to be the case. So most of the times women are what they call a lagging indicator of success. If you become more attractive, if you become more successful, more charismatic, generally speaking, once you've had all that together, about a couple weeks later, a girl starts to respond to it, which is generally good. But while that is there for like 90% of us, you just have to be prepared that the other person, even if you have these skills, isn't going to get it. And you need to truly believe, again, objectively know, not think, but know that you're worth a damn. And that if she's not going to give you some, well, then there is a younger, hotter, tighter body out there that's more than willing to take her spot. And if you're not there, I'm not saying like, yeah, Ryan said it, so I'll go. No, I mean, like, if you're really, really not there, then you got work to do to get there. I don't even want to like understate how much psychological work that is. Like I said, I've got an entire book just going through the process of getting there. Everything from how you shine your shoes to what you shove in your mouth to how you sleep with your wife to like how you deal with a fight with your mother-in-law. And all that stuff comes together, and it sucks to say, but it's like Carl Sagan was right. The way to bake a pie, first you have to create the universe, and in this case, you essentially have to create a man until you can handle that bitchy wife. So take that for what it's worth. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. Take this as a pep talk and not as like a cautionary tale. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.